Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Bridging Oceans Through Indigenous Work-Integrated Learning. My name is Morgan Flanagan, and I'm the Coordinator of Events and Special Initiatives at the BC Council for International Education. Thank you very much for joining us today on what I hope will be an informative session on Indigenous Work-Integrated Learning. Before we get started, it's important to acknowledge that at BCCIE, we live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish people of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Now onto a few housekeeping items. I know we're all familiar with Zoom, but as a reminder, please use the Q&A function to send your questions or if you have any comments. If you need any technical assistance during the webinar, please use the chat box and we'll help answer your inquiry. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers for today's session. Joining us from the University of Victoria, we have David Busch, Indigenous Co-op and Career Coordinator, and Renée Livernoche, NONET Experiential Learning Coordinator. Thank you both for joining us, and over to you.
Yes, so my name is David Busch, and my co-host is Renée Livernoche. We're joining from the University of Victoria, and we're presenting on a unique Indigenous International Work-Integrated Learning Exchange program, which is a mouthful, so I'll call it the IIWIL program for the presentation. Renée and I will do a formal introduction, and then we'll get into the presentation. So yeah, as I said, my name is David Busch. I'm the Indigenous Co-op and Career Coordinator here at the University of Victoria. I work in the Co-op Education Department. I am First Nations on my mom's side. I'm Niska and Gitxsan, and I belong to the Eagle Clan of the Niska Nation. I was born and raised on Vancouver Island on traditional Stamanis territory, also known as Ladysmith. I had lived in Victoria on the Lekwungen territory for 5 years, but my family and I recently moved to Maple Bay, near Cowichan Tribes territory, where my wife and 3 children and I now reside. I'll quickly touch on my role as the Indigenous Co-op Coordinator. I work with employers who are interested in hiring Indigenous students for co-op or post-graduation work experiences. And then I also support Indigenous students who are either in the co-op program or are interested in pursuing co-op across all program areas, supporting them finding culturally relevant work or work that's meaningful to them. Among other things, I also plan the Career Fair and Mock Interview Clinic for Indigenous students and support this program alongside Renée, and I'll pass it over to her.
Bonjour. Hello, everyone. My name is Renée, Livernoche on my dad's side, Bilodeau and Allard on my mom's side. I trace my roots to the Innu people in Quebec and to the French settlers of Trois-Rivières and Cap-de-Madeleine. However, I was born and raised in the Lekwungen territories, which finds itself being on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. I currently live in the Wasanich territories, which is just northeast of Victoria, close to the ferries and the airport, if anybody's ever been on the island. I'm the NONET Experiential Learning Coordinator, and I work with the Office of Indigenous Academic and Community Engagement at the University of Victoria. The office that I work in resides in the First Peoples House, which is a central location on campus for Indigenous students, staff, and faculty. In my home, I live with my partner and our 2 dogs. I also have a grown adult daughter who also has 2 little ones, and they call me Renée. So it's a great privilege to have such a wealth of family. And similar to David, I work with Indigenous students, and specifically I connect them to work-integrated learning opportunities such as community internships and research apprenticeships. It's a great privilege to be here on these lands and to be of service in a good way. And I'm excited for the conversation that we'll have with you today about the Indigenous International Work-Integrated Learning Exchange Program. So I'll move to the next slide for you, David. Over to you.
Great. Thank you. So yeah, our session outline today, we're going to go over partnerships, where they started, where they've transitioned to, how it's expanded and changed over time, and maybe where we're going in the future. We'll talk a little bit about the background of the Indigenous Exchange, how co-op fits into that, and how NONET fits into that as well. Supporting student success, both incoming and outgoing students. We'll hopefully have some time to play a video that kind of gives the student voice and student perspective. And then talk about lessons learned along the way. So things that we've noticed over time and how we've improved the program over time and challenges that we've faced. So without further ado, we'll jump into it. So the IIWIL program. It started back in 2015 with our partnership with the Wallatuka Institute at the University of Newcastle. For those of you who aren't super uh, privy to the Australian geography, that's about 2 hours north of Sydney in Australia. And in 2017, we then partnered with Woollonga at Macquarie University in Sydney. So we had two partnerships that were pretty close to each other. And then in 2018, we expanded to a third partnership, Nagarra Williams Center at RMIT University. So that's the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology. So by 2018, we had three different partnerships across Australia and three different offerings for our students to go. Depending on capacity, we usually had one of three of these institutions that were able to receive students at a time. And in 2020, we hit COVID, and so the program went on pause, and we actually had two students that were on the exchange during that time, and we had to pull them out, and they did the remaining of their co-op remotely. So after that long pause, we restarted when things started to open back up and rekindle those partnerships with our partner institutions. And so in 2022, we were able to send two students, and that was actually shortly after I started, which was it was really great to be able to kind of see this program come back to life, and things opened back up, and we sent two students, Sophia and Kennedy. And very grateful to you, Vic. Renee and I were actually able to go to Australia, present at WIPC with our partners on this program, and then do a worksite visit with the students and do a check-in with them and how they're doing, and visit with all of our partners at the time. And so in 2025, we're no longer partners with Woollonga at Macquarie University. And we're looking at rekindling the Wallatuka Institute because right now that's kind of dormant. So right now our primary partnership is with RMIT, but we're also maybe looking at expanding to other universities in Australia who would maybe be interested in partnering on this unique program. So as of right now, it's Nagarra Williams Center at RMIT is our primary partner. And so it's a living, breathing relationship, and so things will change over time. And so we're looking at expanding to other universities. Thanks, Renee. So what is co-op? The students who go abroad do a co-op work term. And so co-op is a 12 to 16 week work term, and it has to be a minimum of 420 hours, and it's paid work experience related to the student's field of study. And the students will have a direct supervisor that participates in their evaluations and reflections and worksite visits. And so students who participate in this program who go abroad do a co-op work term. And before they are eligible to even participate in this program, the students must complete the Lenanga Prep Seminar, which is a course taught by Renee, and one domestic co-op work term. And so at UVic, the Lenanga Prep Seminar actually meets most of the requirements for what is IPP, or Introduction to Professional Practice, which all students must complete before participating in co-op. So Lenanga is kind of this springboard into lots of different opportunities here at UVic. And so one of them being co-op, and then the next being the IIWIL exchange program. So it's kind of a bit of a trajectory for when students come talk with me or with Renee about participating in the program. We do some expectation setting. You can't just go next week or next month or next year. It's a trajectory. So, students who are in first year, we've talked to them about what that is and setting them up. In second year, you can do the Lenanga Prep Seminar. And then in the summer of your second year, you can do a domestic co-op. And then after that, you're eligible to participate in the IIWIL exchange program. So making sure that students are set up for success. And that's really what the prerequisites are all about. Next slide. Thanks, Renee. So the context of co-op, this is from our most recent annual report, 2024-2025. And this just highlights, where UVic is at in terms of our numbers and placements. I'll just highlight a couple stats here as it relates to our presentation today. So we have just over 3,600 placements last year. And 104 of those were by Indigenous students, and just under 200 of those were international placements, so a little over 5.3%. Most of them are in the Lower Mainland and Vancouver Island, but we do have them, across Canada and international as well. So, next slide. Yeah, and so how co-op relates to this, and they will exchange. So the students who go abroad, I've highlighted that they participate in a co-op work experience, typically 13 weeks paid work and related to their field of study. And we try to send them May to August or September to December. We do our best not to send them during our spring semester, which is January to April, because that is Australia's summer semester. And because it's based out of the university, there's less things going on campus, less staff on campus to support them in the work that they're doing. So it typically works better for when students are on campus and it's during their academic semesters, not during their summer semesters. And then for the students, Indigenous students at our partner institutions who come to UVic, they'll do a academic term first, so that's September to December, and then they'll do a community internship. So they actually stay on campus during our holiday break. So right now that's during the December months, and then they'll stay for January and a little bit into February as well to complete their community internship, and that's with a local Indigenous organization. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview of how the students who come here, the work that they do, and then the work integrated learning component is within the community internship. So I think I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And just we've discovered too, and we're about to do it for the very first time, where students will be coming with a January start. And so the Australian students that are coming here, the Indigenous students from Australia that get to come to UVic, will have the option of doing a September to February program or a January to June program. And so we're about to pilot the first time we get to do a complete January to June. The last time we had a student here for that, COVID took them away just before the community internship. So yeah, this program is living and breathing and lots of components and moving parts. Thanks, David, for setting us up in a good way and talking about co-op. So the Lenaget program started off as a research project in the early 2000s, and it was to identify success factors for Indigenous students in post-secondary institutions. And so the word Lenaget, the name, is a Sanchothan word, and it is Sanchothan is the language that's spoken by the Hosanich communities here, or Coast Salish peoples. And the word Lenaget means to paddle your canoe through a storm and to make it safely to the other side. In a less poetic way, we can see it as success after enduring many hardships. So what we've discovered is creating a holistic suite of programs that encompasses academic supports as well as cultural, social, and financial opportunities. And so the academic component of Lenaget includes the preparation seminar, as David has been talking about. It really emphasizes the importance for Indigenous students to build on their Indigenous research scholarship, and so to really think about Indigenous research methods, ethics, ways in being and doing, as well as thinking about their professional community-based practice. And so to really think about who are they becoming in their trajectory, what are their main areas of interest, what do they already know, and what can we add to that that development of goals and learning for them. So through the preparation seminar, we'll talk about central concepts and the undoing the legacy of colonization. We talk about lateral violence. We also have a career skills workshop that the students do. They submit resume, cover letter, participate in a career fair and a mock interview clinic. We spend some time visiting with a local Indigenous community organization. And then the students also do a research project on a topic that's most relevant to them. And it's really about them visualizing what a work integrated learning experience might look like. So maybe a community internship, a research apprenticeship that can even translate into like a co-op work term or even post-graduation employment opportunities, but to do the research that will best prepare them for the work to come. So this research project that they do in the preparation seminar is really visualizing what's at stake. Why is this so important? What is of the matter for them to really be reaching the goals that they have in the areas of interest that they have? Now, the Lenaget suite of programs also includes a graduate seminar for graduate students that are engaging with Indigenous research methods and specific research projects that they're doing. And then the experiential learning opportunities that students who complete the preparation seminar also qualify for research apprenticeships, community internships, and or the Indigenous International Work-Integrated Learning exchange program that we are here to talk about today. So the preparation seminar really catapults the students into various locations that all have to do with experiential learning. So it's really up to the students in terms of they're not obligated to do all of these things, but they're invited to participate in them if that's what they're interested in. So I mentioned that Lenaget was part of a research project that happened in the early 2000s, and Morgan, with your help, Morgan will be posting in the chat the link to this research, so you can see it for yourself and think about reading the project and how Lenaget came to be, and what was like all the consultation that we did with the local cultural knowledge holders and the elders, as well as students, staff, and faculty, to really think about what are the key principles of success for Indigenous students in post-secondary institutions. And so these were the 6 key principles that we've identified: reciprocal learning, supporting Indigenous identity development, that the programming be culturally relevant, that it is based on community building and relationship building, as well as individualized programming. I'll go individually into each one of these. So the reciprocal and culturally relevant programming we can see happening when the students come together and there are shared traditions and cultural practices, the sharing of our histories as it relates to colonization and the undoing of those legacies and those impacts. Students also build reciprocity in their community internships when they're working with a local Indigenous organization. Sometimes students will even go back home too. This is also the point of Lenaget, is that we were advised by the elders and the cultural knowledge holders to think about how it's important for students to find a way home. So the work that we get to do here with Lenaget is to create pathways home. And so the gifts that they get to learn and the strengths and the new tools that they gain is also to bring it back home and to be of service to their home communities, whether it be in education and health or governance, environmental. Students have expressed interests in all of these areas because Lenaget is also interdisciplinary. So the preparation seminar brings in Indigenous students from across campus. And so the kinds of projects that we have are always student driven, and we gain a lot of hope and inspiration by also connecting students to previous alum too. So that's part of that reciprocity, is that students that have finished the program will also come back to tell their stories to the students that are up and coming. Oftentimes, especially within Indigenous communities, also just within Canada, across First Nations, also Métis and Inuit, we practice intercultural competencies all the time. It's part of who we are and how we come to be together, is learning, language from each other, learning practices from each other. There's a lot of common beliefs and shared worldviews, and there's a lot of differences too. There's a lot of diversity and different ways of being and doing that we like to be able to share together. So it's important for students to connect with their own traditions as well as learning about other people's traditions, especially where they are. Most of the Indigenous students that we have at UVic are studying from away. They're what we call at the First People's House is a home away from home. So students, it's important for them to know where they are and whose territories these are and how to build good relationships. Also at the First People's House, we have an Elders in Residence program, and so students get to spend time with elders. We have the Elders Lounge. It's very much like a living room, and so you could be like hanging out with your grandparents and checking in every day of the week and finding somebody new there that you can sit and share some stories, get some support, and build relationship. And so that's really important. For the students that go abroad, the co-op work term students, they tend to do a community engagement activity. And so we look at them being in service to where they are and to think about the gifts and the strengths that they bring into the space and how they see themselves being of service. And then also to maintain also that cultural relevance and meaningfulness is that when students arrive in both of their host institutions, we'll have a welcome ceremony, and also when they depart, we have been doing a farewell feast as well. And so in those spaces, we have ceremony, we have cultural workers such as speakers and drummers and ushers, and so there's a lot of work that happens there to wrap the students in a good way, take care of them. We do a blanketing ceremony, so we offer them a blanket to protect them on their journey and make sure that they feel respected and valued in the work that they're about to do or the work that they have done. We also talk about supporting Indigenous identity development and individualized programming. And so we like to meet the students where they're at and to recognize that many of us having been impacted by the histories of colonization, that it's really important to be on that journey of developing our Indigenous identities, and that not all of us had the privilege of growing up in community with traditions. And so this is very much, again, going back to the principles of helping students finding a way home. So helping students doing that identity work is incredibly valuable. And so we take their lead. They let us know how they want to be doing that work, but we're always presenting opportunities for that sharing and um, that personal development that folks do. And then we work individually with the students to make sure that the programs are relevant and meaningful for the trajectory that they're on in their academic scholarship, as well as their professional practice. So again, thinking about the welcome to the territory, the blanketing ceremonies that we do, connecting folks with elders and cultural knowledge holders. Students, they do the research that is relevant to them. They think about it as their community-based practice or their research scholarship. And then the community internships, again, with local Indigenous organizations that align with the students' area of study. So we're always looking for how theory can be moved into practice and how it maintains and sustains their academic program. And then relationship and community building. This is so very important for the work that we do because we wouldn't be able to do it on our own. When the students first arrive to campus, we always tap into being able to do campus tours and doing the international and Indigenous orientation so they can settle in a good way. They can make sure that they've met all their immigration requirements. And they also get to connect at the First Peoples House or with the Indigenous units at our partner institutions. They get to connect with elders and community knowledge holders. We also at UVic, we have the Campus Cousins program, which are like peer mentors. And so students, the Campus Cousins hold the First Peoples House open later into the evening. So students can go there and study or participate in maybe movie night or craft night, or sometimes they'll have a speaker series or some cultural events like with music and dancing. So there's all kinds of opportunities for the students to build sociocultural relationships and to really take advantage of also land-based learning too, being out in nature, being out on the land. And the International Center for Students also offers a lot of international events for students to connect with as well, across cultures and across nations, across countries. And so it's there's lots of opportunities for students to to build a network and to build a place of belonging. We also do regular check-ins with students with our Indigenous student support coordinators. And so both incoming and outgoing students will have access to connecting with support folks on both sides of their home and host institutions. And so that's really important to make sure that the students are settling in okay and that their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and wellness are prioritized and that they have ways and resources to be able to sustain and maintain a good sense of self in those times, especially when it can be, a little bit disorienting or destabilizing to be in a whole new country with a whole new set of cultural mores. And so it's really valuable for the students to feel like they have opportunities around them to be able to feel grounded and confident in the work that they're doing. So through all of this, we've really enhanced our commitment to decolonizing work-integrated learning. It's become a very central component of the exchange program and also a lot of the work-integrated learning that we do at UVic. Even just having David's role at UVic as the Indigenous Co-op and Career Coordinator, it's really valuable to think about how students are accessing quality experiences in WIL. And so we like to work closely with community organizations, with employers, with the students, and to keep that conversation alive. It's important to keep us engaged and connected, collaborating. So it doesn't exist only in our roles and only within the program. It has a bit of a ripple effect. And so with the work that we do, again, going back to some of the principles that are connected to Indigenous student success, that it's culturally relevant and meaningful. It has to connect. It has to be respectful and relevant for the students. And that it includes elders and cultural knowledge, that we're connected to place. The University of Victoria is in Lekwungen and Wasanich territories. These are really important relationships for us that we build strong partnerships with. They've taken years, decades. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that happens with just a memorandum of understanding. These are living and breathing relationships that we need to keep nurturing and caring for. And so it's an ongoing conversation. So this is, again, also partnerships across institutions. And so our partner institutions are really valuable to us. We even think about staff exchanges so that we can help each other out and perhaps be able to, in addition to the students, get to cross-pollinate and help each other out with building these programs and making sure that it's meeting the needs of the students and the communities and our institutions. We also, we pride ourselves on matching students with supportive workplaces. Again, thinking about quality placements for students, quality experiences, meeting the needs and interests of Indigenous students. And so really thinking about their different degree program areas and the goals that they have, with their altruistic commitments to working for community, their families, their nations. This is a common thread with Indigenous students, is that they're not in post-secondary just for themselves. They're thinking in a bigger picture. They're thinking about how they can help undo the legacies of colonization. And we know that that's going to take multiple generations. And so there's a lot of work to do. And in that, we're building strong reciprocal relationships. We're always looking at how can we be of service. We're always looking at what we have to offer and what do we hope to gain, and how can we build on our confidence and our ability to work well together. So a lot of that work is there are a lot of moving parts. And so I'll pass it back to David to keep talking about just some of the other details of the exchange. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Renee. So, yeah, this is a list of our outgoing students from UVic to the specific institution, our partner institutions, and then incoming Australian students to UVic. So the parity is pretty close. We also have uh, competition in progress to RMIT University. So they're actually going through the interview process right now. The final decision should be made by December 17th, and that is for the May to August semester, and they'll be receiving 3 students. Typically, we try our best to send students in pairs. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes we have seasoned travelers who are feeling confident to take on the exchange on their own, but we have found that sending students in pairs, they at least have that support network from someone who's going through a similar experience. I know Kennedy and Sophia, they weren't really connected before going on the exchange, but then, built that relationship and became friends along the way, and usually, relied on each other as a bit of a support network when things got challenging. The exchange itself, it's a cultural exchange as well, so students get to offer what they know about their own Indigenous culture and heritage. And then they also get the opportunity to audit a course and learn about Indigenous histories in Australia, and learn about the histories of Indigenous peoples in Australia. And that, because of colonization, that can be triggering. And so we do our best to send them in pairs, and then also have a support network around them, so they'll be plugged into so having a support network there. And then hopefully, I know for Kennedy and Sophia, I was doing check-ins, but once every couple of weeks, and it transitioned to once a month. But we want students to feel supported, and ideally they'll have that support network there and be able to access services there at the university that they're plugged into. So for the students going abroad this summer, that will be out of RMIT University. Yeah, so I just want to highlight, over 10 years, this might not seem like a ton of students, But the idea is it's quality over quantity, and the program, because of all the checks and balances, it's never going to be a program because of the prerequisites and because of the quality assurance. I don't think it'll ever be set up to be where we're sending, 15, 20 students a year. It's, 3, 4, maybe 5 students per year to our partner institutions, and then again receiving that same number, so the parity is kind of on point. Right. Assessing the learning. So again, we might link this as well. This was a research publication in the Journal of Work-Integrated Learning by Karima Ramsey, who's my supervisor, Rob Hancock, Lolita Kynes, and Nora McCrae on developing and delivering culturally relevant international work-integrated learning exchange for students. So it's kind of an academic perspective on the exchange program. So, in terms of students learning, assessing the learning for students who go abroad, UVic uses a competency-based model for all co-op placements, including international ones. And as a part of that, there's the cultural intelligence, or CQ, and intercultural competencies. And those are assessed in 4 areas: cultural motivation, knowledge, strategic thinking, and appropriate behavior. The students complete the assessment in 3 stages. So at the start, so pre-work term, they'll do a self-assessment to assess their baseline competency levels, and then set 3 to 5 learning objectives related to the competencies. Then they'll, at the midterm and the worksite visit, they'll reflect on how they've demonstrated and developed those competencies so far, and comment on the progress towards those learning, and also incorporate some supervisor feedback. And then post-work term is the final self-assessment, reflecting on what was learned and how the competencies, including the CQ competencies, were developed, and whether learning objectives were met. And again, the supervisor will have a chance to comment on those as well. So the worksite visit typically takes place again at around 5, 6, 7 weeks in, depending on availability of the supervisor and the student. And then each program area has program-specific requirements. So Kennedy and Sophia were our most recent ones, and Kennedy was in engineering, and they had a technical paper that they needed to write because she was in civil engineering. And then Sophia was in social sciences, and they had a final presentation that they needed to give as a part of their work terms for their specific program areas. And then for our sake, we had exit interviews that we conduct with students, so that we can learn about how we can improve the program for future students who participate. And so that's how we assess the learning at UVic for students who participate going from UVic to Australia on a co-op work term. So some lessons learned along the way. I think I have the first slide here. Yeah, so it takes a village. From UVic's perspective, this also is, I should mention this, like our partner institutions have to take this on as well. It's not just UVic who has to bring together a bunch of different campus partners. So I'll give a shout out to our International Center for Students. They support our incoming students with different supports and opportunities. I know Renee had mentioned that they have orientation. They also have advisors that can answer any questions that the students have. We have Resident Services, who is a big partner because of the way the exchange program works. The students actually have to stay for an additional about 6 weeks or so, which it's atypical, and so they've been able to accommodate students living in dorms during that time. And so that, creating these campus partnerships to see this program come to life and meet the atypical nature of it has been really great. And the Indigenous Academic and Community Engagement, which is the IACE department that Renee works out of, they support with academic, socio-cultural events, and those take place out of the First People's House. And then for cooperative education and career services, which I work out of, we support the outgoing students with employment supports and different opportunities, and then pre-departure activities. So the students do a course called Take Flight. I support students with budgeting, visa, and then the students also, I connect with them, and if they require, for the students that are going to RMIT, I reviewed applications and supported with cover letter and resume writing, and just another set of eyes to make sure that the students who are going abroad feel supported and confident going into those interviews and the going into the interviews and feeling like they're, putting their best foot forward to possibly go on the exchange program. So that's how all of these different departments kind of come together and support the incoming and outgoing Indigenous students. And I'll pass it over to Renee.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, David. So, specifically, some things that we've learned over the years is focus on health and wellness. So, thinking about how students are taken care of and have opportunities to seek services and resources to make sure that their experiences are of quality and that they feel strong and confident. So the housing, historically, we had options of living in residence or doing homestay or the students locating their own housing. Sometimes they'll have previous relationships or friendships that extend into those countries or specifically in Australia for this exchange. And so sometimes students will be able to self locate placements, but especially since COVID, we lost a lot of the homestay opportunities. And it's not often that students will have a pre-existing network in those locations. And so what we've leaned into is the on-campus housing, and that has actually propelled us in such a beautiful way, especially at UVic where we have Snaka House, which it's one of the newest buildings on campus, and the Indigenous Living and Learning community that David was talking about earlier. The exchange students get to secure space on that floor, and it's a floor of 40 dorms for just Indigenous students, and they have access to a huge shared kitchen. They have beautiful 360-degree views of campus and the coastline, shared living room spaces. They have study spaces. The students do a lot of work together and build incredible relationships over time, lifelong friendships and strong networks. And as David mentioned, a lot of students become inspired to do the co-op exchange themselves. And so it creates a lot of conversation around the importance of this work and the opportunities that it creates. So as we also identified is the exchange logistics in terms of timing and flow. And so making sure that students are landing in times that are busy, that are relevant, that are meaningful, and have lots of opportunities for them to stretch and grow. And so the Australian students, they will be coming to UVic September to February, January to June, while UVic students will be heading to Australia from May to August, September to December. So those were things that we learned over time that also impacted health and wellness. And then the pre-departure training also, just shout out to ICS. Earlier I saw that Sonam was online, and I'm just so thankful for the relationship that we have with the International Center for Students, because without them, we wouldn't be able to prepare the students in the ways that we can. And so we have a lot of like virtual calls over time in preparation for the exchange so that all of their immigration requirements and the visa requirements are all met, that they have, some financial planning, that we know about travel and accommodations, we know about course registration. Like there are so many components and moving parts to their exchange. So doing that in partnership at our institutions is really, really important. And so when we meet the students, we also meet with international support workers from the host and home institutions, with the students as well, with the folks from the Indigenous centers. So there's a whole branch of relatives that kind of build relationship with the students during that time. And then, of course, the students will each have their own checklist for incoming and outgoing. And so making sure that they stick to a timeline of these tasks that they have to do in order to be ready and to do the work in a good way. So these were some lessons that were really important for us to learn and to manage over time. And these are some key principles for the exchange itself in terms of helping us reach some successful experiences. The financial resourcing, we've gone through a few different funding pots ourselves at UVic, and currently what students are able to access is the strategic framework, the Experiential Learning Fund. But both institutions, both home and host institutions, are responsible for each of the students financially to different extents. And so our students will have the strategic framework access, and so that's a $10,000 grant that they have access to be able to help offset travel and accommodations. Once they get to the host institution and they do their co-op work term, the agreement that we have with our MIT is that they provide a stipend to the students of $5,000 to help pay for their time there as a co-op student. And so then we also encourage UVic students to consider maybe topping up with some additional grant opportunities with One World International Scholarship or the Student International Activities Fund, depending on what they hope to do while they're abroad. Maybe they want to add in some extra travel, or perhaps they have some housing back at home that they need to take care of while they're away, because we wouldn't want them to lose their housing while they're abroad. So these are things that we want them to think about. In Australia, we know that there used to be the Endeavour Fund, and now they're working with the Colombo Plan. But unfortunately, the Colombo Plan doesn't include Canada as a destination. And so each Australian partner is needing to look at how they can fund their students internally to help offset their costs. Some students will take out loans to come, but right now our MIT have received a private donor that is providing opportunity for students for these mobility exchanges. Yeah, so and then also students, when they complete the community internship, the Australian students, they also access a $1,500 stipend from us to help, again, offset some of their costs while they're here and doing the work. So this is really important for us to have these conversations with you today. The students are growing, and it's such a beautiful experience and opportunity. And to be able to increase students' access to these mobility programs is really paramount to adding to their quality programs in post-secondary institutions. Thank you, everybody, for the time today.